Elections is crucial to the building of every democracy. Elections is everybody's business. As Liberians prepare to go to the polls, Public Trust Media Group (PTMG) presents 2023 Elections Update, keeping track of the electoral process. I'm Frank Sainworla in Monrovia, and this is edition number 2 of Elections Update, a PTMG production in partnership with this station and several other radio stations every week. And this is also a podcast online.
This is the time we come together to keep our country safe forever.
This is a half-hour program exclusively devoted to elections issues in the countdown to the 2023 presidential and legislative elections. Ballots, not bullets. We're focusing on the issues, not personalities, spotlighting the laws, guidelines, and regulations governing the electoral process, as well as the civic roles and responsibilities of both voters and those to be voted for. This program also promotes free, fair, transparent, credible, and violence-free presidential and legislative elections. So stay focused on the issue in the countdown to the October 2023 polls.
This is the time we come together to keep our country safe forever.
Here are what edition number 2 will be updating you on today. Campaign finance regulations. What is it? And what does the elections regulations say about contributions, expenses by political parties and candidates? Boosting women's political participation, the challenges and prospects. We'll be hearing about how UN Women is supporting women's initiatives, such as the Women's Political Leadership Clinic.
So currently, Wongosa, with support from the UN Women, we are working with community structures within the counties to ensure that we build a capacity so that they can work along with county authorities to promote women participation in decision-making processes in the various counties.
The head of Sisters Aid Liberia says the fate of greater women's participation or representation lies in the hands of Liberia's feminist-in-chief, President George Manan Weah.
Is before the president for his signature. So we hope that he sign on the document so that we can also engage with NEC and political parties to ensure that that document is implemented.
Our regular segment on who is eligible to vote under Liberian law. Also coming up, recent research study on elections and democratic governance in Liberia recommends setting up of a National Civic Education Commission and adequate financing of elections with domestic resources.
Recommendation, which is key among everything, is the establishment of the national mechanisms to be able to establish a civic and voter education commission.
Ahead of the October 10 elections, the president of the Liberian Senate, Vice President Joel Howard Taylor, tells lawmakers, leave behind those old political tricks which are divisive and instead stand on the side of democracy.
We must leave behind the old political tricks which only seek to divide us to a point that is unhealthy but keeps our country stagnant.
All coming up on edition number 2 of 2023 Elections Update.
Wake up, Mother Liberia, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Mother Liberia, wake up. The word is here to wake you up.
It is clear from statistics just two female senators in the 30 member Senate and just a handful of female representatives in the House. Women are underrepresented in the 103 member national legislature at the Capitol building. Why has the number of women lawmakers dropped since the first elected Liberian and African female president left office? The UN Women has said it is working with various women's groups to increase women's political participation ahead of the October 10 presidential and legislative elections. But what concrete efforts are being made to increase women's representation and political participation? Well, the National Women's NGO Secretariat, Wangoso, is one of the many women's groups being sponsored by UN Women. Madam Esther S. Davis Yango is Executive Director of Wangoso. Before coming on the air, she came into our studio and told our reporter Issa Farr the level of engagement that has been going on with political parties on ensuring gender parity.
So the Women NGO Secretariat, as you are aware, is the coordinating body for women issues in Liberia. And Wongoso has been very instrumental in ensuring that they advocate and work along with the people of Liberia to ensure that more women are being elected in the House of Representatives. So currently, Wongoso, with support from the UN Women, we are working with community structures within the counties to ensure that we build a capacity so that they can work along with county authorities to promote women participation in decision-making processes in the various counties. And we are also working nationally with the national legislature to ensure that the Section 4.5 of the new elections law be amended, which will mandate political parties to have not less than 30% of either gender on the political party listing.
Are you in any way worried about the reduction in female representation at the legislature, considering that 2005 produced a good number of women at the legislature, but since then all other elections have seen low representation of women? And if so, why do you think is responsible for that?
Thank you. So, like I already said, we are currently working with the national legislature through the Women Legislative Caucus to ensure that the Section 4.5 of the new election law is amended, because we know that women face a lot of challenges when it comes to electioneering processes. Women lack the financial support. Women find it difficult to get elected during party primaries, which is very difficult. This is one of the reasons why we are working with the legislature to ensure that the president sign onto that law, because if he does, then it will give women the space to be able to participate. I can tell you during 2005, when Liberia implemented a temporary gender quota, we noticed that a lot of political parties were able to send more women on the candidate listing, which resulted to more women being elected.
Well, another women's NGO involved in efforts to boost women's political participation this 2023 with support from UN Women is Sister Aid Liberia. Reporter Issa Farr has been in conversation with the executive director of this group, Miata Gawa Dawalo, who says a women's political leadership clinic is being operated to support women interested in running for elected positions.
First of all, we thank your women for their support and other partners who are really supporting us to work with women and key actors to ensure that we enhance the political inclusion and participation of women in Liberia. Sister A is a women's rights organization. Most of our work is around building the leadership capabilities of women and young women as well to occupy leadership position, as well as build an active political lifestyle. So we run the Women Political Leadership Clinic that is providing technical assistance and support to women who are aspiring and women who are candidates, in election or election processes. Now, through our intervention, we've been able to train women aspirants across 8 counties. We've been able to work with women structure, especially the Peace Hut women, the women in cross-border trade, rural women, and a host of young women and young men institutions within these counties to ensure that these structures are also engaging at the local level, not only to support women who are contesting for public office, but to also ensure that they advocate, increase advocacy around the local government act, which also permits women participation at local level, including occupying positions such as town chief, paramount chief, even at the commissioner level and superintendent level. So these are our work. And at the level of at national level, we work with the Women Legislative Caucus. We work with the National Legislature and the Women NGO Secretariat to enhance advocacy on policies and laws that also mandate political parties, and key stakeholder group to promote women political leadership or women leadership in general. One of those has to do with the new election law, which has been already passed by the House of Rep and was also passed concurred, with the Senate, and then is before the president for his signature. So we hope that he sign on the document so that we can also engage with NEC and political party to ensure that that document is implemented.
That was Madam Miata Gawa Dawla. She's head of the Sister Aid Liberia, saying that the fate of bigger women representation in Liberia in elected position rests in the hands of President George Manan Weah, who refers to himself as feminist in chief.
The young and the old, the rich and the poor. Let's put Liberia first in all that we do. This to the young and the old, the rich and the poor. Let's put Liberia first. I'm begging you, God has blessed this land.
The campaign finance regulation was signed by the 7th NEC commissioners and printed on May 5, 2016. Article 89 of the January 6, 1986 Constitution of Liberia established the NEC as autonomous public commission, and the NEC has the authority to conduct all elections and referendum and declare the results. At the same time, Article 83D of the Liberian Constitution also gives NEC the power and authority to mandate every political party and candidate to submit their financial reports to the National Elections Commission. Ensuring that there is a level playing field in the electoral contest is one of the reasons why the campaign finance regulations was put together. Is intended to monitor and guide the level of financial spending and contributions to candidates and political parties during elections. Article 1 of the Campaign Finance Regulations spells out the reason under the title, purpose, and citation. Article 1.1 says these regulations establish rules and limitations to the financial activities of political parties and candidates. And Article 1.2 adds, these regulations shall be cited as campaign finance regulations and shall come into effect or force on the date of publication. The campaign finance regulations define three things here when it comes to financing electoral campaigns: contribution, expense, and personal expenses. What are they?
First, the campaign finance regulations say contribution means a gift, subscription, loan, advance, or deposit of money, or anything having pecuniary value which is donated to a candidate, campaign treasurer, or a political party for use during an election campaign. It includes donations by a political party to the campaign of one or more candidates supported by the party, donations by any candidate to his own campaign, and donations in kind, gifts, goods, and services, except the value of services of individuals who volunteer without compensation, and the value of loans made in the ordinary course of business where repayment is required and interest is charged. According to the campaign finance regulations, expense means any purchase, payment, distribution, loan, advance, deposit, or gift of money or anything of value that is either made by a candidate or political party for an election campaign, or which is made with the knowledge and consent of a candidate or an authorized agent of a candidate or political party for an election campaign. An expense shall also include disbursements for any news story, commentary, or editorial distributed through the facilities of any broadcasting station, newspaper, magazine, or other periodical publication, or such facilities that are owned or controlled by a candidate or a political party. Finally, this is how the campaign finance regulations define personal expense. The term personal expenses means all expenses that a candidate would have incurred, irrespective of his or her candidacy, such as payments for personal clothing, rent, mortgage, utilities, vacations, personal expenses of family members, and other expenses that are not related to campaigning for office. Political party means an association registered as a political party which supports a candidate or candidates in an election.
Well, this is just the first part of our spotlight on electoral campaign financing in this program 2023 Elections Update. As Liberia is noted for making good laws but weak on implementation, is there the needed mechanism and system in place to track the financing of campaign activities in the period leading up to the October 10 presidential and legislative elections? What has been the case during past elections? Does NEC have the capacity to scrupulously monitor campaign contributions and expenses? What about local and international pro-democracy organizations? In fact, what's their level of interest and deployment of resources into keeping track of campaign contributions and expenses in Liberian elections? How has the lack of proper monitoring system fueled the tendency by some big political spenders to influence voters through vote buying? Is this undermining the whole principle of ensuring a level playing field during electoral processes in Liberia? Well, this program will be putting a spotlight on this important electoral instrument, the campaign finance regulations, in the countdown to the October 10 polls. If you've just joined us, this is 2023 Elections Update, a half-hour radio program exclusively devoted to election issues in the countdown to the 2023 presidential and legislative elections. Ballots, not bullets. Welcome, I'm Frank Sainworla. This is a Public Trust Media Group PTMG production in partnership with this station every week.
We took this break to bring you this special information. Public Trust Media Group, along with several radio stations, including this station, brings this weekly production of 2023 Elections Update to fill you in with the laws, processes, and happenings relating to Liberia's elections on October 10. This program informs and educates you, our listeners, including first-time voters. Public Trust Media Group, however, looks up to you, Liberia's development partners, civil society organizations, and pro-democracy group for partnership and sponsorship of this program. Please email us on fsainworla@yahoo.com or call 0770-755-173 or 0888-311573. Thanks for being part of the change maker.
The much talk about 2023 elections year is here, when some politicians are poised to engage in all sorts of political activities. Some of the activities could involve what is called politic, even if it is not in the interests of the vast majority of citizens. In the forthcoming October 10 presidential and legislative elections, all 73 members of the House of Representatives will see the posts being contested for in the upper house. Half of the 30-member Senate seats are up for grabs. During the week, lawmakers of the 54th legislature began their sixth and final session at the Capitol building in Monrovia. The President of the Senate and Vice President of Liberia, Joel Howard Taylor, had a stark reminder to the lawmakers on the significance of the election year. Leave behind those old political tricks which are divisive and stand on the side of democracy.
As we begin, let us keep in mind that our actions, inactions, or knowledge that we bring to this august body will set the pace for the forward movement of our country or retrogression of those who we represent. I hope we will choose a forward movement together. The Honorable President Pro Tempore, distinguished senators, as we begin this sixth session, it is my prayer that each of us will do so firstly with a deep sense of reverence to God. For if we must climb higher than where we are right now, we must travel together. We must leave behind the old political tricks which only seek to divide us to a point that is unhealthy but keeps our country stagnant. For indeed, we are only one nation, we are one people, and we have only one destiny. This sixth regular session is not only historical because it climaxes the constitutional responsibilities of the 54th legislature, but it sets a democratic platform of electioneering which mandates all of us to stand on the side of democracy. We must replicate the posture of peaceful coexistence, respect the rule of law, respect one another, and uphold the tenets of democracy which we exemplified in 2017. Let us be reminded that the collective interests of our people are bigger than our individual ambitions. I am convinced by the grace of God that the confluence of the seventh regular session, which will usher in a year, by the grace of God, all of us will come back, that the 55th legislature that will convene in January 2024 will be a resounding statement to the world that Liberia is no longer a post-conflict story, it is a successful democratic story.
Ladies and gentlemen, election is not war, election is not confusion, election is not animation, election is not division, election is not tribalism, election is not confrontation, election is not hatred, election is not war. I want you to let my people know that.
Ahead of the October 2023 elections, a key process that must take place is the registration of voters, people who will meet the criteria under Liberian law to cast the ballots on that day. But who is eligible to vote? This is contained in Article 3 of the Voter Registration Regulation in the country's new elections law, as provided for under Article 77 of the Liberian Constitution.
Section 3.1 says, a Liberian citizen who has attained or reached the age of 18 years or older may register as a voter, except one who has been judicially declared to be incompetent or of unsound mind, who has been disenfranchised as a result of conviction of an infamous crime and has not been restored to citizenship. Section 3.2 says a person must register to vote at the voter registration center established by the NEC for the place where he or she ordinarily resides. Section 3.3 says no person shall be allowed to register more than once during the registration period.
Let the old and the young come together as one, as we start on this new road to realize our goal.
In the first edition of this program, we brought you the first part of a research study on elections and democratic governance in Liberia, with findings showing that Liberians have very little understanding of democracy as a model of governance. In this edition, we bring you part 2, focusing on recommendations by the study. On the phone line to the United States, the researcher, a Liberian elections expert, and former executive at the National Elections Commission NEC, Mr. Josiah Jokai, is calling for legal reform, setting up of a National Civic Education Commission, and adequate funding of elections with domestic resources.
We still need to take a critical look at our legal instruments for governing elections in the country. That is critical because for any elections to be deemed credible, to be deemed free and fair, that elections has to be conducted twice to meet your own established legal framework. That's the first thing. The second thing is to meet internationally accepted benchmarks. That one needs to be done. So that's a critical recommendation. Another recommendation, which is key among everything, is the establishment of the national mechanisms to be able to establish a civic and voter education commission. Maybe a civic education commission, because voter education is the exclusive responsibility of the commission. They have the expertise to do that. But national government is supposed to establish a civic education commission. In that commission, we have an all-time ruling civic education consistent with Article 10 of the Constitution.
And not necessarily wait for elections.
Not at all, not at all. And I will give you an example that is very crucial, that can help to strengthen our democracy. When you expand the understanding, the knowledge of Liberians on the Constitution, in terms of what they need to do as citizens to support governance processes, what they need to do as citizens to hold their government accountable, what responsibilities they have to take initiatives on their own to promote peace and security and legitimacy in their country. The Constitution has everything that guarantees that. But the unfortunate thing is that the citizens are not aware of that. They are not educated to that extent to know. So you need a national mechanism in place to ensure that citizens through a ruling mechanism, a ruling approach, perpetual approach, can be educated all year round on these roles, rights, and responsibilities. And it is government's responsibility to be able to do that.
Okay.
The other thing is,
Go ahead.
yeah, the other thing I wanted to chip in has to do with financing of election. And government has to take a full responsibility. They should not be about reminders. It's always shame that election commission and government have to be in the media about funding elections. No, you cannot have a vibrant democracy where you are having funding issues. Funding should just be readily available.
For all they say, we go to school, so no job for all, we get problem. Hustling in the screen and they have money beyond do, and they get what chair, all they take your own market, what do they want to do now?
Well, I'm a graduate of the state-run university, and everywhere I've applied, they are asking me for 10 years experience, and that is impossible.
We the AFL them widows, the government promised us our husbands' benefits, and up to now we can't see it.
Good road, no good school. The health sector poor. Now anything that can check out bottles. Then politicians stay giving us empty promises. What happened now?
Who the just? In fact, who rather lay in a complaint to? They will listen to all what they in power. Now, the election time, people know how important. After election, we thought they say we are Muslim minority.
Yeah. They say the evil a man does live after him, but the good is often interred with his food. So let it be with Caesar.
Well, edition number 2 of 2023 elections update is over. This is a half-hour radio program exclusively devoted to elections issues. This is a Public Trust Media Group PTMG production and presented by me, Frank Sainworla, in partnership with this station and other stations every week. Ballots, not bullets.
This